UPI is the mainstay of India's digital economy today. But looking back just a few years, it may not have been a possibility. We've seen UPI grow, and with it came a bunch of apps that made it possible, one of which is SuperMoney. Today, we're joined by Prakash Sikaria, the founder of SuperMoney, to take us through the journey so far and what lies ahead. Welcome, Prakash, to ET Now. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us. And I want to start off by pointing out that when you began in 2024, you were the 56th on the NPCI list of UPI apps. And within the past 2 years, you've zoomed to the 5th position. You're rubbing shoulders with the pioneers of the industry. When you started, there was a lot of skepticism of whether we need another FinTech app or not. But you've proved that wrong with the growth. But the question now is it possible to make money in FinTech? What is your answer?
So glad for having me over you're right, when we were launching, there was a lot of skepticism inside the company, outside the company. And the core belief that we have always had is that internet has interesting ways to disrupt itself every 10 years. 10 years back, when UPI apps were coming in, the core problem everyone was solving for was trust. That if you point and shoot at a funnily looking square, which is now called QR code, money will transfer from your bank to someone other's bank account, right? Now, as you said, UPI has become a basic layer of transactions or real-time transactions in the country. So how do you elevate the game? And you elevate the game by making a consumer-first proposition. And for us, we wanted to anchor SuperMoney on youth customer, right? And that is what has driven the growth, the customer focus. 50 to 60% of our acquisitions are organic. There's strong word of mouth, industry-beating acquisition costs, etc., etc., etc. The way to think about UPI is that UPI is the first payment product, right? Imagine the world of credit cards, etc., where you have given a payment product and forgotten. You don't have the customer access after you are given the product. Here, the customer is coming to your app 40, 50 times a month, right?
Yes.
So the model that will evolve in UPI is that you can reward the customers and you have to earn back that money via cross-selling various financial products, e-commerce products, etc., etc., right? And that is the opportunity in India, that how do you build customer, the next wave of UPI would be building customer-first companies that are building customer-first solutions, building payment solutions that acquire and engage the customer and make monetization by cross-selling possible.
Right, so UPI largely becomes the hook for the customers to come in, and the money is made elsewhere. But talking about the hook for SuperMoney, the 5% flat cashback, many would say, was the major reason for the growth of SuperMoney, and that is what has propelled it so far. But looking ahead, how sustainable is the cashback as a model? You're practically buying the market at this point, but should customers then expect the rewards to sort of taper off going ahead? Like, we've seen glimpses of that even with Axis SuperMoney card rewards. So we've seen that cashbacks do not really last for too long traditionally. But what is SuperMoney's take on that?
So our take on that is that thus far you're right. All the UPI players start with big rewards and then shut it down. Our commitment has been that rewards are cost of doing business. And how do you make the business model work along with the rewards is the proposition. I think if you think about India as such, like we always talk about, there are many Indias. And if you are attracting via cashbacks the best and the most highest monetizable category of customers in FinTech, your monetization per user will be much higher. For example, we focus to have $8 to $10 of monetization per user and $3 worth of reward per customer. And that business model is extremely sustainable, will work through many, many years so that we don't have to stop the rewards. So we will never stop rewards on SuperMoney.
So the key for you is to make sure that your monetization outpaces whatever is the cost that you are giving in terms of cashbacks. That's quite interesting. But I also want to touch upon the key demographics for SuperMoney. 72% of your users are under 30 years of age. Now, this is a cohort that's largely aspirational, but if you look at it from a lending lens, they may also be, one of the more riskier cohorts to lend to. RBI has flagged it before, and whenever it comes to personal loans or credit products, how risky is it to lend to this cohort, and how are you solving for that problem?
So if you think about in India, what has happened is because of RuPay cards working on UPI, the credit card market has leapfrogged POS machines.
Correct.
So there would be few lakh POS machines across India. Now there are many crores QR codes across the country, right? So suddenly what has happened is there is an opportunity to give people their first credit card.
Right.
But as you rightly said, that there is limited digital footprint or a credit footprint for a lot of these customers. So you can't give a regular unsecured credit card. And then we came up with a proposition of secured credit card.
Okay.
Secured credit card, you can make a FD as low as a 100 rupees FD and get a card that is backed by it. So the idea is that rather
So what is the kind of limit you would get on a 100 rupee FD?
See, I'll say 90% of the FD's value you can get as a limit.
Okay.
Now what happens today is, and the first question we also ask that, what can you do in a 90 rupees kind of a credit limit? What happens is that you do first few micro transactions. You say you buy a chai, because that is also a big leap that India has taken. Now micro transactions are moving to credit cards. So, and you say, oh, this works, you're getting great cashbacks, you're getting FD interest, and you start adding more and more money. So the idea is the first, if you see a credit builder card globally, there are very large companies globally built out on this secured credit card. Like today, SuperMoney has become the largest distributor of secured credit cards in the country on back of this premise. So we believe that there is a lot of product innovation that has to happen on top of UPI. UPI 1.0 was putting a QR everywhere, making payments ubiquitous.
Right.
UPI 2.0 is leveraging the infrastructure of UPI and building innovative financial products on that. And that is what we have been on to.
So, give me a sense of your revenue mix as of now. Where is it that SuperMoney is making money right now?
So 80% of our money come from distribution of credit, personal loans.
Okay.
10% from distribution of credit cards.
Okay.
And 10% from payment activities.
Yeah, so since you mentioned secured credit cards, you're one of the largest players, but it contributes a small part of your current revenue. A large part of it comes from the personal loans, right? So my question is actually about that portion. Would you say that the gross NPAs that you're seeing in terms of personal loans, the kind of customers you're able to bring, since they are the younger customers, is there a concern about their credit worthiness at all?
No, so I think there what we do is we help our lenders or partners to understand the customer profile outside the bureau report. See, the problem with, again, as I said, for the younger audiences is there's no credit footprint, there's not a bureau report. But you are what you consume. Like if you are buying expensive stuff, so you are affluent, you can afford to pay back a loan, you might not have a credit footprint. And that's also a great customer for the credit ecosystem. So what we are also focusing on is that what are the other alternate data signals that we can pass on to the lenders for them to make relevant choices and underwrite. So I'll give you an example, right? We have grown 3x on our credit distribution over last year.
Right.
And every single lender has grown with us because they are seeing much lesser risk profiles for the customers on the platform. And why? Because they are able to segment over and beyond the standard credit data that is available for those users.
So would you say that going ahead, UPI history, or even for that matter, since SuperMoney is under the Flipkart umbrella, is that data also being utilized to understand the credit worthiness? Yeah,
so what we do is, obviously we don't share any data, but I think we can build a credit worthiness score of a user that we can, like there's some primitive form we already do, but that's a work in motion. We'll keep doubling down on that.
Prakash, also on SuperMoney, we've seen a bunch of new launches of new products. Flight bookings is one, stock booking is something that you're getting into. In a way, you're building a super app for SuperMoney. But we've seen many companies go down that path and become very cluttered. So what's your vision with SuperMoney as a super app going ahead? How do you still keep it simple and, not risk doing too much and instead doing a few things perfectly?
So what our focus has been, we are focusing on the Gen Z's wallet share. So for example, I'll give you a small example. You'll see prepaid mobile recharges, postpaid mobile recharges being there, but you'll not see bill payments on SuperMoney. And one of the reasons for that is because we believe that the Gen Z's wallet share is on mobile phones versus a water bill or a gas bill. Maybe the 35 plus are dealing with that part of the problem. So I think within segments, so you might see many segments, but within segments, we are taking very deep strategic choices to figure out those pieces. I think for us, payments cross credit will be a very central piece around all of that.
Okay.
So when you think about flight or any other commerce activity on SuperMoney, it will not just another commerce app or trying to cross-sell a commerce product. It will have a credit or affordability layer on top of it. Pay in 3, pay in 4, you're buying a flight ticket, okay, fly now, pay later. Those are the things that we will focus on as we move ahead.
Right, so it wouldn't really be a commerce app. It would largely remain a financial services app, and it will have like a credit layer on it, because that is obviously where the money is being made for SuperMoney as well. But I also want to talk about the stockbroking, functionality that you've added. That is also a very crowded space. You have, legacy players and a bunch of specialized players in stockbroking coming up. So is there really a gap that you've identified, or are you banking on just the number of transactions or the number of users who are opening SuperMoney to actually use it for stockbroking?
So we think that over last decade, a lot of problems around broking has been solved. There are multiple broking players, as you rightly said. The problem that is not solved still is what to buy and when to sell, right? I mean, so I think the pipelines are established. The brain part of it is still missing.
Okay.
So again, we've not fully launched it. It is at the ideation stage, but definitely I feel that there is a gap in the market. Will we address it with AI? Does it enhance our ability to address it? Are the questions we debate internally? But is there a gap into the overall wealth space, and more so from an advisory kind of a space? I think AI cross advisory is a very interesting space to be in.
Right. So you said that you would want to be a contribution margin positive by end of 2026, right? And just the revenue mix that you've given me currently is 80% personal loans, 10% credit, and 10% others. In the year ahead, what is the kind of change that we will see in that revenue mix? Will we continue with the same mix and we'll see an acceleration of revenues across these three categories, or will there be newer avenues for monetization that we will see?
So if you think about our business model, there are three monetization opportunities. There are payment revenues. So you'll see a lot of large TPAP players focusing on payment as a core source of revenue.
Right.
Other is credit distribution revenue, right? You'll see that also playing out. The third bucket that we want to build is this commerce revenues, right? So if you think about, we think about our company into these three business lines per se, right?
Right.
So if by December we want to be 60% in credit distribution, 20% in payment, and 20% in commerce. So that will be the mix. A lot of growth coming from commerce and payments, and while the credit also will continue to grow.
And all this at the assumption that UPI still remains free and there are zero MDR fees on that. But in case that changes, I think that will become a whole other...
Payment becomes a hero.
It becomes a hero for you. So Prakash, you've said 20% of the new revenue will come from commerce businesses. Give us a sense of what commerce businesses look like currently at SuperMoney. What are some new avenues that you are exploring there?
So if you see, this microtransaction economy has taken off, like micro dramas, subscription economy, etc. And what we have been exploring, what if you bring subscription to commerce? So imagine you buy a blazer or a jacket or a sneaker, and automatically over next 5, 6, 10 months, the money gets deducted from your bank account, but you get to consume it today. See, today's young India and our focus on Gen Z recommend that the aspirations have become very high, right? People have been exposed to what are the limits of consumerism, right? But the means have not, and hence affordability need to be solved for. And UPI for the first time provide a very, very interesting rail to solve for that. So we believe that microtransactions, UPI mandates, cross-commerce is a great play, and that is where we want to bring in commerce on SuperMoney.
But hasn't this already been experimented in terms of buy now, pay laters, or what we see as EMIs, or is it a combination of both of them that you think will be the winning formula?
I think the winning formula is a UPI app doing it well.
Okay.
One of and few people have tried, right? I think no one had a significant depth in commerce. They have to build the commerce 0 to 1, and it's generally hard to build commerce in India 0 to 1.
Right.
We want to leverage Flipkart's commerce expertise and SuperMoney's credit, Gen Z, and payment expertise to make that happen. So if you think about it, there is a lot of demand for affordability.
Right.
But who's championing affordability? There's not a single company that has cracked the code. So while there is a latent demand, it is not getting served by any of the platforms today, and SuperMoney want to be the platform of choice doing that.
Also, since you've mentioned cross-selling, I also want to understand the regulatory framework around cross-selling that currently exists. But RBI is kind of tightening a bit about how you are able to, how much you're able to cross-sell. So, are there any regulatory, reservations that you see coming your way, and how are you looking at solving for them?
So, thankfully, we are a company that has been born after a lot of regulation has been established,
set,
right?
yes.
So, for example, digital lending guidelines, etc., came. It actually clarified a lot of things. So, the assumption is that we should not be disrupted, given that we have built the foundations basis what is there, basis what is there on DPDP, what is there on DLG, what are the other guidelines. Again, no one can predict which way the regulator will go, but we seem to be aligned with the direction in where the regulation is, where we have defined ourselves as a LSP when it comes to credit, personal loans. We have defined ourselves as a co-brand partner where it comes to credit card, and the guidelines are very crystal clear.
Right.
So a lot of regulation came in because there's not as much clarity about what a co-branded partner can do, what they can't do, what a LSP can do and what it can't do. But now that the clarity has emerged, I see less disruption going forward.
Also, talking about the DPDP Act and the kind of changes it is going to bring about, do you see your costs inching up considerably because of that? Have you already solved for it?
I think we have a good handle on DPDP. Right?
Okay.
See, I think we, being part of Flipkart Group and a larger umbrella, we treat customer data and some of these compliance pieces with utmost urgency. Right? So a lot of building blocks of DPDP are already there as we think about data and all, and baked into some of the business model projections that I was talking to you about.
So for my final question, I want to understand, as we're 1 month or 1.5 months into 2026, what are the biggest goals that SuperMoney is chasing this year? And you're already in the top 5 UPI players. Where do you see yourself by the end of this year? And also in terms of the money, are you looking at raising more funds? Will these largely be used to fund the kind of cashbacks that you're giving out right now, or are there other things that future funds will be?
No, I think one of our strategies will not increase the cashback cost to the company overall.
Okay.
Right? I think the idea is to be smart about it while impacting the customers, and we're doing something there. But at the very core, what we want to do is scale the revenue lines. Right?
Okay.
See, I think there is consumer product market fit that we have already achieved, and there is a particular scale that is demonstrating that. We want to, what I call is a business market fit, right? So for example, cross-sell could be a good thesis. All these 3 business lines I spoke about could be a good thesis, but all need to add up for the business to be sustainable. And the CM positive is the ultimate goal. I think we are very, very confident that once we have this machinery going, wherein you bring in customers, you have all the business, it's an infinitely scalable business. Right. I mean, if you look at UPI, we have 1.5% market share. That means there's a lot more to be taken. But this year focus is to grow the revenue lines, hit that CM0 milestone, while maintaining the growth trajectory, right?
Okay.
From a fundraising standpoint, I think we are very well capitalized for this year.
Okay.
So we have not yet decided, do we want to go external? Do we want to continue taking money from the parent, that is Flipkart? And I think some of how we are shaping on some of the milestones. See, I think we are very clear that we don't want to bring in external capital till we have not figured out a business market.
Right.
So some of that is also dependent on how our journey continues to be as we think about growth for SuperMoney.
Right. So big goals for SuperMoney, contribution margin positivity being the big one, and you've given us a great sense of where UPI is right now, what the next generation, so to speak, for UPI will be like, and with a very loyal Gen Z cohort that is backing SuperMoney now. I think the way ahead is quite bright for SuperMoney. Thank you so much, Prakash, for joining us here on ET Now and having this conversation. It's been lovely.
Thank you for having me over. Thank you.